Okay, so let's talk about rational numbers. We're going to talk a little bit about rational numbers and we'll start adding and subtracting them. So rational numbers is a number system that classifies numbers based on their types and characteristics. So we have this whole set with different types of numbers underneath this big umbrella that's rational numbers. Okay, so we have what we call whole numbers. You started learning those. That's one of the first things you started learning. It's a set of all positive counting numbers. And this one we start with 0. Okay, so you can throw some examples down there as long as it's positive. So 0, 4, I'm just picking them off my answer bank now. My favorite number is 22. You can put your favorite number in there as long as it's positive. So, now, so that's like all the numbers when you first started learning to count, you started with. Then we went to, now we look at natural numbers. It's a set of positive numbers. Okay, positive integers specifically. So it would be, natural numbers don't include 0. They start with 1. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. So on and so forth, and then it keeps going. Integers, however, are a set of whole numbers and their opposites. And this usually looks what you see on a number line. I'll have one at the front of my classroom. So let's say we have negative 22, we have negative 5, we have 0, we have 5, and we have 22. So it's the negatives and the positives that go with that. And then we have rational numbers. So rational numbers are numbers that can be written as fractions, terminating decimals, and repeating decimals. Okay, so examples for these, and they can be positive or negative. So we could have negative 3.7. We could have, so these are not the things we were just talking about. They're not whole numbers, they're not integers. Usually, I mean, those are rationals, but we'll specifically look at things that, usually these are things that you don't want to add or subtract or multiply by hand. So let's say like 3/4. That's rational because it becomes 0.75. Like 3 1/6 becomes 3 that becomes 3.1666666 repeating, just like 3 1/3 is 3.33333 repeating. So it does repeat. There are a few numbers that don't fall in rationals, like our number pi, we'll talk about later in the year, things like that. Okay, so we're going to determine here if what these fractions are is decimal and then terminating or repeating. So in your calculator, this is where you're going to want a calculator. If you don't have one, pause and go grab one. If you're on a device, you can open a new tab and go to Google and then just type in calculator. It'll give you a calculator. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to type in if you have one that has fractions, you can use it. Okay, so you're going to do 5/6, and we want to convert that to a decimal. You could do 5 divided by 6, 0.8, and then it's 333 repeating. That's how we write that. Then we decide, is it terminating or repeating? We know that because this one repeats, it's 0.83333, so this is repeating. Okay, then we go 2 divided by 11, hit enter, get ourselves a decimal, 0. And this is 1/8, but it's 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. So again, this one is repeating. And then we do 17 divided by 20, we hit enter, and we get 0.85. Well, this one doesn't repeat, which means it's terminating. It terminates. It stops. It has a quick end. Just like 3/4 is 0.75, that would be terminating. Okay, so in here we're going to list the different types of numbers. So when we talk about these, we talk about rational, integer, and whole numbers. So they're all rationals. But then if we slim it down and get a little bit and a specific amount within rationals, that's an umbrella. Underneath the umbrella, we have this little group over here called integers. And then that's our positive and negative. So our negative 22 and our positive 22. Okay, rationals are all the numbers, which excludes irrational, which we'll come back to. So rationals could be like 3/4. It does include negative 22 and positive 22. And then so integers within that is called what we call whole numbers. And our whole numbers start at 0, but then they include all of the positive numbers of the integers. So rationals include integers, which include whole numbers. So all of these are rational. So it says, is it possible for a number to be both a whole number and an integer? Hopefully you said yes, and you're supposed to give yourself an example. Giving you time to think. What number could be a whole number and an integer? Okay, so I'm going to go 22 is a whole number and an integer, right? If you pick a, even 0 would work, anything 0 and above, because those are both whole numbers and integers. Now 3/4 is only rational. It does not, that is not an integer or a whole number. Okay, on this page, we're going to get into adding and subtracting rationals. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. With these, we end up getting to use our calculator this year. I know most of you can do these without a calculator. I don't doubt that. So really adding and subtracting integers, making sure you're putting them in your calculator. So since we're going to use our calculator, we're going to skip this part. So you're going to need a calculator handy for this. I would recommend a calculator like the TI-30XS. I currently have a Casio that has a fraction button. It really doesn't matter. I'd encourage you to get one that has a fraction button. If you don't have one and need to borrow one, please let me know. Reach out. So here you're going to put 3/8, and if you have a fraction button, you hit the fraction button 3 and then go down and put 8. Then you're going to minus, and then we're going to do 1/2. And if you're not sure on the calculator, we'll take some time the first day to go over what we should do here and how to use these calculators. So if we do 3/8 minus 1/2, well, 1/2 is bigger, so my answer is going to be negative. But my calculator says negative 1/8, and that will work. Now you did these by hand before. You can do them by hand, 67.3. You can type them in 168.45 plus 67.3. I'm fine either way. Now it is a decimal, so I expect you to get decimal out of this. Okay, there's your answer there. 3/5 plus 9/10. I'm hoping you're doing this with me here. And that's going to give you 3/2, which is equal to 1 and 1/2. I'm cool with either. You can leave it as 3/2. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so I want you to pause. I want you to do these last 3 with your calculator there. Okay, so you should have gotten these 3 answers. Check those if you need to pause it at any time so that you can check those. Okay, so this is going to be your practice. I did give you an answer bank on the sheet for this. I didn't for the top. Just remember terminating and repeating. Repeating puts a line over it. Terminating has an end or stops. We're also going to add and subtract in real life. So we're going to do some real world problems, as well as real world as they can get them on paper here for us. Okay, so let's talk about this. We see rational numbers frequently in real life, and we really do. This is one thing you do use. If you ask your parents, most of your parents use calculators for a lot of this stuff, and that's fine. I use it to check everything. So we're going to brainstorm words or phrases, indicate positive and negative numbers, and we can list them in the table. So feel free to pause and try this. I'll give you one of each. So a positive would be a credit. And you can even ask your parents on some of these. A negative would be an O, so I owe somebody money. So feel free to pause this and try to fill these in. Okay, so here are the words that we have for positive. We have credit, receives, deposit, revenue, income or salary, profit, increase and gain. And then for negative, we have owe, debt, decrease, deficit, loss, loan, or deducts. And some of these you're not as familiar with because you haven't used them yourself, but you will at some point in life. So we think through a situation. In the vocab here, these words are going to be important. Then we follow the rules for adding and subtracting rational numbers. Draw a number line or a model. We can do that to help if we need to. So let's look at this. During a drought, the local lake was 2 1/4 feet below normal sea level. 2 weeks later, the water level dropped an additional 1 3/8 feet. How far below normal sea level was the water after 2 weeks? So we know it started, and again, I want to see work somewhere. Below, which would be a negative 2 1/4, or you can put dropped 2 1/4. And then it dropped another 1 3/8. Okay, we're looking for how far below. This is really just this question at the end. After 2 weeks. Okay, so we started at negative 2 1/4, and then we dropped 1 3/8. This is what it would look like as a problem. So it started negative 2 1/4, and then I subtracted because I dropped 1 3/8. Excuse me. So you can actually go ahead and put that into your calculator. If you have one with a fraction button, it's got a mixed number on it, you can use that. Okay, so if you need to, pause it so you can do the math here. Once you got that done, make sure that you've tried practicing these on your calculator because that will help you. So it dropped negative 3 5/8 feet over those 2 weeks. So those keywords are important to help you. Okay, so make sure that you complete pages 8 through 12 and all on adding and subtracting rationals.